Hi guys, Justine here again, Intuitive Reader. Welcome to my channel. I wanted to start doing videos with other content besides readings and energy updates and intuitive hits and downloads and things like that because I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, and I also feel like the empath temperament is very, very misunderstood, and I will be doing videos on this as well as toxic healing when it comes to love and all things love. They are topics that are near and dear to me. So let me go ahead and go into it and talk about what I call, they're not bizarre to me or anybody that's empathic, but and let me see if any empaths relate. Please put in the comments if you do. But basically, these are three bizarre empath quirks or traits that is not exactly of the norm and are a little out there and not of the norm. I'm very careful to call myself crazy or bizarre is okay. I'm totally fine with being bizarre. Guys, who wants to be normal anyway, right? But I wanted to put these together mostly for people to understand the empathic temperament, but also for people to relate that are empaths, right? All right, so let me jump into it. So number one, this one is most empaths do not feel human. Oh my God. If there's any other conflicting emotion in the entire world, it's this one. And basically why this happens is, so clearly I'm speaking to you. You can see I'm a human being, and I am human, but we're all, at the end of the day, spiritual beings, having a human experience and not the other way around. So it's really our spirit selves, our higher selves, our soul is really what we are at the essence of things. And that's the basic, and this is actually taught in philosophy as well, is that, and I believe they call it the witness, witnessing the soul. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not super huge on philosophy or very knowledgeable in that topic, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Or it might be the witness and the wise man, something along those lines. But anyway, when it comes to spirituality, it's really about the higher self and the ego, right? So when we are born into human bodies, we are given the ego. Now, is ego the enemy? We can argue that, but technically, yes, it's more about fear being the enemy, but we need an ego to have a personality. We need an ego to stick up for ourselves, and we need an ego to not stick up for ourselves. Let me correct that. We need an ego to slightly feel confident about ourselves, because confidence is a human thing. I don't care what anybody says. It's actually not linked to self-love. It's actually linked to how we feel in our human bodies. So it is pretty much a human thing, right? Our angels don't exactly, and our spirit guides don't exactly feel confident. They just are, right? It's very much a human thing. So yeah, that requires the ego. And the ego keeps us safe, right? Because we don't want to be letting any strange people into our cars when they say, I need a ride. And if you're a female and letting a strange man into your car, it's not exactly the greatest thing. So a little bit of fear is good, right? Right. So there are reasons for the ego. However, when we are very spiritual beings and when we are empathic, which means that we're very connected, most empaths are very spiritual beings, and we are very connected to the soul. So for the most part, we can see the difference. We can see the separation from the human body to the souls, from the ego to the higher self. Does that mean we are always acting high and mighty and so spiritual and enlightened? No, not all the time. We're human, right? We are in this human body and we are giving this personality. I'm giving, I'm not Justine technically, right? I am my higher self, my soul, and I am Justine's body. I know it sounds a little weird, right? And that's why I'm saying that some people can interpret that as bizarre, as I'm calling myself my name in the third person. However, that is why we don't exactly feel too associated to our bodies some of the time. And we are more connected to the soul. This happens a lot when us empaths can really have the ability, the intuitive ability to connect with past lives as well, right? Because then we can kind of see and feel and know our past lives as a whole, and we can kind of see it that way, and then we don't really resonate with this particular body, right? So we can kind of see it again as a whole. So most psychologists would call this disassociation, but it's really not. It is, we see reality as what it actually is, and just because I can touch this cup, or I can touch this computer, or something along those lines, it's not exactly what's real, and we can kind of understand that from a consciousness and a spiritual perspective. So I oftentimes, and I don't know if anybody else relates with this, is that I will look at someone or something and I'll say, oh, humans are funny. Humans ride the bus to work. That's interesting. Just really random things that come up in my consciousness, that where I'm actually speaking as to humans as a third person, as I speak to myself as a third person. So that is a little bizarre, okay? And it's really hard for us to get grounded. And after stuff like that happens to me, then I decide that I need to get a little bit more present and a little bit more grounded in my body. And so I can survive here, right? But it's a little bizarre, but I have heard this countless times from other people. And if it resonates with you, let me know. From other empaths, right? Okay, number two is even though I feel like people that are empathic and have the empathic temperament are very good at seeing shades of gray and not exactly black and white. There is a particular time, maybe not a particular time, but basically we are all or nothing. And okay, I'll just say it and go where I was going to go, is that I see this a lot in romantic relationships, is that we just feel like we need all or nothing. Are we in a relationship or are we not? The in-between just does not work for me. And a lot of the time I believe that happens is because this is another thing too, is that I'm really good about labels. I think labels are really good when it comes to really figuring out who you are, and I'm talking about like the foundation of who you are, whether that's the Myers-Briggs, whether that's a personality disorder, whether that's your zodiac sign. I really believe in labeling ourselves because that really gives us a foundation of the understanding of who we are as humans or souls, or however you want to look at it. But when it comes to and that transfers over to relationships. Are we in a relationship? Are we seeing other people? Are we single or in a relationship? There's nothing in between. And again, that comes up a lot with romantic relationships. And that comes up when it also in times where we get really uncertain. Uncertainty is something that makes empaths really uncomfortable. Stability is a huge thing. And it's really kind of a huge thing for a lot of people because we can find our root chakras really deal with a lot of security and stability. And if we don't have that, because that's the one that's at the base of the spine, we feel very uneasy and, again, uncertain. So having labels, knowing where you stand with someone, knowing where your next paycheck is coming from, which is why I feel like it's pretty hard for people that are empathic to start businesses and things like that. So it's more about the all or nothing. And a lot of people can, just be spontaneous and be okay with the in-between and all of that good stuff. And, which is probably pretty healthy human behavior, not attaching to something right away, or, it's not saying one is, worse than the other and one is bad and one is good, right? It's not really about that. But sometimes, for the most part, we can see shades of gray and we don't really see things as actually right or wrong, but labels are something that can be very important to us. So it's really an all or nothing type attitude. Okay. Number 3, interpret information with feelings. Okay, so this especially goes for, and actually I don't think this is very bizarre, but I noticed how bizarre it could be when I tried to explain this to people, because I actually thought people operated this way, everybody operated this way my whole life. I didn't really realize until my spiritual awakening it was actually extremely not normal that this happens. And so basically interpreting information with feelings. Most people interpret information and process it through the brain very very mindfully, very analytically, very logically. They hear something and then they take in that information. We as empaths interpret information with feelings, especially if you're an intuitive empath, right? Because that's, your intuition is like escalated, right, guys? And really quick. I really believe everybody was born with intuition. I believe everybody is psychic. We all have psychic abilities. But I do believe people are more highly intuitive than other people are. And it's because, and I'll tell you right now, I spend a lot of time really cultivating it over the last 5-6 years. So making sure it is strong and making sure I can do my readings. And, obviously it comes in handy for everything else, right? In life, basically. So we interpret information with feelings. So we are very hard on people that are negative, energy vampires, narcissistic personality disordered people, because we can feel that energy. Like, people don't really understand. And a lot of the times, especially if we're feeling extra sensitive, extra open, not protected, that kind of thing, we can really feel like, and I've been there 1,000 times, where somebody's actually stabbing me. That is correct. I can actually feel physical pain from the energetic and emotional stuff that I pick up. And people don't really understand that. And that's actually how we process the information, is that if I walk into a room and I know somebody just had a fight and there's a lot of tension, I will walk right back out. I don't have to ask any questions. I don't have to process it logically. I know what happened. There is an inner knowing here, and there's an inner feeling here. And we call those claircognizant and clairsentient. So it's very different from how other people interpret information. And again, I didn't really understand how bizarre that was until I realized other people do not think that way. And guys, and I mean, I'm sorry, not even think, process things that way or operate, right? So that's why I usually say, and guys, there has been more and more research on the way that empaths are. I just recently heard that we have more mirror neurons, and we actually have a more sensitive central nervous system. It's becoming apparent. It's becoming studied, and it's been at least what I've seen from my research is that it's becoming more not serious, but taken seriously, right? Because I've heard a lot of the time that people think being empathic is a response to trauma, of deep trauma. No, I don't believe that. I believe it's also biological and could be scientific as well. And we're just starting to get that information out there. But I know in my hearts of hearts that a lot of people do not operate this way. I know it. And I figured it out when I became very conscious. When I was 27 is when I had my spiritual awakening, about 26, 27, something like that. But yeah, it's a little bit bizarre if you're a regular person, typical person, and you're like, how does that even happen? It's interesting. But the better information that we have as empaths about this, and people that are not empaths, they can understand that everybody operates differently. And I think that was the main realization that I had, is that everybody does operate differently, and nothing is better or worse than anything else. And does being an empath make us better people? Absolutely not. We just process things differently. We may have a lot of empathy, more than maybe a typical person, but empathy is selective, I've noticed, for different people. But it's not to say that they're not empathetic. Sociopaths and narcissistic personality disorder is a completely different subject. I'm talking about regular, typical people compared to empaths. So yeah, is it a superpower? Absolutely. Are there some bizarre things that come along with it? Yeah, that too. But again, it is a superpower if we do not allow it to be a curse. And there's a difference between being empowered as an empath and also being disempowered. And I talk about that a lot, because we were given this power, this superpower, to do really great things, and not just be a sponge for other people. So I will be putting out more videos about that as well. So, okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I wonder if anybody resonates, or maybe doesn't resonate. That's totally fine. Put everything in the comments, and I will be on next week, hopefully with new videos, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Have a good one, guys. Bye.